Welcome to the Squad Games Podcast. Squad Games Podcast.
What's the worst hobby mistake or tragedy that could happen, such as spilling Nuln Oil?
Chopping
well,
off your fucking
one thing
finger.
I have recurring nightmares about is when I go into the garage to varnish some of my models. I worry, a little bit about the frosting that happens for the varnish. That everybody I think said that happened once or twice. But what truly keeps me up at night is accidentally grabbing a can of primer and taking models that were ready to be done in varnish and just spraying black or white all over them.
Oh.
I have not actually had that happen, but I have like this just freak out instinct that to triple check the right can every time I go do that.
I did do that to a commission paint job rather recently. It was awesome.
Yep. I can see how it could happen. I really do. I'm terrified of it happening to me.
So nothing bad has happened yet, but my cat likes to break into my room, and she's very selective of which models she wants to play with for the night. She'll only take out one, and it'll be somewhere in the house. That's the nightmare, that one day, one of my real important ones are gone. I'm like, God damn it.
Well, hopefully you have them in a nice case.
No, that'd be wishful thinking.
Well, the stuff that you're actively hobbying too, it's hard to protect those from cats. Thankfully, none of mine seem to take interest in the models, and in fact, they're pretty delicate with gingerly stepping over them. Pretty great. The bigger
she doesn't
problem,
bat it around or anything. She just picks it up and will put it somewhere.
Huh.
That's pretty awesome.
Why?
That's
You see like cultists in the middle of my kitchen one day. Like, huh?
Which cat? I'm very familiar with your cats.
Susie.
Yeah, I don't remember which one that is.
So much for being familiar.
I mean, I know what they look like. I just don't remember.
God, dude, it's the one that's your cat.
Oh, that one. Yeah, you're right.
You were super familiar with it.
I am super familiar. G, what is yours? Your worst hobby nightmare?
You know what it is? It's dropping miniatures.
Oh yeah,
Like just
that's
just
not
just
bad.
just
I
getting
do that all the time.
Yeah.
it was way worse when
it was metal.
models were metal. And I've gotten murdered enough about talking about how awesome metal models are. So I'll
Metal
just move
models
on.
can-
Oh, I am
Die.
right there with you. Metal models are great. I was part of
They're
the original
fucking
War
sick.
Machine crowd with the giant metal robots, and it was awesome. And if you dropped it on your foot, you'd actually bruise and bleed. It was sick.
It was super sick.
I had
I'm with you guys.
I had the Metal Tech Marine when it came out. I want to say it was 5th edition, and you just got like the big old kit with the servitors, and I remember dropping it and just like all the arms like getting totally fucked everywhere. And nothing I could do about it. As a kid, I didn't know how to repair that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Just glue, but like that's not going to save it.
I mean, obviously
so.
nothing's as good as Fine Cast, but
Oh my god, this guy, he's trying to start something. Just like starting the squad.
yeah, I'm
Games
not going to get a good
podcast.
report card from this podcast.
Yeah. Will you get
So-
graded?
So for me, I use a heat gun for a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And one time it slipped off my bench when I wasn't paying attention. I had my earbuds in, and it caught by the cord and it turned itself on, and it was just spraying heat at my wooden table and almost caught on fire. Went by because I left the room and I came back, and for me it would be accidentally catching your house on fire using hobby supplies, whether that's enamel paints and then having a heater on because you live on the East Coast and it's hot or it's cold or something. You're trying to warm up your room, like any kind of like fumes or, there's a lot of different ways that it could happen. Just,
I was going to say, you live in the most flammable place on Earth.
yeah, there's wildfires
Happen
all
normally.
the time. Yeah. But yeah, so setting my house on fire would probably be my worst nightmare
for hobby related stuff.
Yeah. Especially considering that I use like lasers for a living.
You do.
Well, another
You haven't
advantage
got
for meta
Hellsfire
models, they'll probably survive the fire.
They would.
He's probably right. Honestly,
The only models to survive
Yep.
is the old Dreadnought. Nice.
that big rock.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Nah.
are good times.
God bless
Old
that
One Foot turned
dreadnought.
into Old One Leg because my son ripped off his leg somehow.
Oh, so it's gone now too.
Well, I have it. It's just I have to pin it.
That's impressive because the legs are one piece.
Yeah,
On
I
that.
know.
So that's actually really impressive.
He must have been throwing that thing.
I mean, he's a strong little man, we'll say.
Clearly.
Yeah. So today we have Chris Bakke and Orion, our two wonderful guests that we have had on this podcast quite a few times.
Quite a few.
Yeah, and I think the last time you guys were on, we talked about Felgor and Colts. Is that what it was?
Which
Yeah,
games are
the
those?
world
I
pursued
don't.
the end when
Yeah,
they
I
released.
don't remember. Felgor? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, who were they?
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll come back stronger and better than ever because GW likes melee metas. All right. So today we have Chris, Orion, G, myself on. We're all going to talk about a couple things. We're going to do an introduction to Kill Team. So if you have friends, family members, you guys can point them towards this episode. We can talk about like some of the key things that people should know or they shouldn't know, all for starting their Kill Team journey. At the end of this section, we will talk about some pro tips. And then we'll do something fun and wacky at the end. That should be a lot of fun. Is there anything that you guys want to shout out before we start this bad boy up?
Yeah, I want to shout out something real quick. So, I'm part of the greater Kill Team community up here in Northern California, and we've got a awesome tournament coming up on Saturday 9th and 10th of December. Would love for anybody who's up in California or even in the general area to come out and come by. And I think there's a link that we may be able to share after the episode here of that event. Just search Merry Mayhem. We also have Discord, so definitely look us up, check us out. I'm on a bunch of the other Discords as well, so just hit me up if you're interested.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, me and G are going to be attending that event, and probably Saya as well.
It's going to be a great time.
Nice.
How about you, Orion? Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I want to get myself in a little bit of trouble here.
Oh,
Ooh.
So in case you don't want to go to the stinky West Coast, also in December, we're going to have Plasma Spam's Christmas 2. This is a very unique tournament that hosts edible terrain.
Whoa.
That's right. I heard about this
Terrain.
last year. It was really cool. I was very jealous.
Yep, it's going to be a little more narrative, so it's more for fun than competition. As the spirit of Christmas is. But, terrain's going to be eaten. People are going to be excited. Everything's house-baked by myself and my girlfriend. And it's going to be one merry time.
awesome.
Is it like made out of gingerbread?
And so everyone knows
Ooh.
Orion and his wife are both professional chefs. And I can attest to how good their food is. So it's quite good. For Squad Games and Lester's Workshop, I'd like to give a shout out to the very first and possibly only Black Friday sale that will be going on starting today, Tuesday, until November 25th, the day after Thanksgiving, I believe. Yeah, we're going to be doing a huge sale on a lot of different things. The main thing that I'm promoting is that we are doing a pre-sale for some competitive mats that I personally designed, and we're getting made. And these are going to be shipped to us. They're being made, and we're going to be giving them out at LVO, and also to anyone who's going to be purchasing them. We can ship them to you, or you can pick them up at LVO. And they're both a Repentant Space Outpost mat and a Necromachina mat. Both of those mats have all the deployment zones, center lines, and central control all clearly labeled and identified. So it should make setting up terrain like a breeze. We also are having to go with that. The Repentant Outpost terrain is going to be $75 off what it normally is. And so is the Necromachina terrain. So it's going to go from $225 all the way down to $150. Repentant Outpost is going to go down to just a mere $100. On top of that, we have token sets that are going to be also on sale, 50% off, that match those colors. And then also, for the very first time, we're going to be putting the hats that we always have at events, the Squad Games hats, Squad Games dice, and a Kill Team starter set from Squad Games, all on lustersworkshop.com too. So feel free to check it out. Help support us, help support the podcast, and also get some really cool gear for Kill Team. So,
Yeah, I second that.
I third it.
Fourth.
Yay!
Yay! Unanimous consent.
Links will be in the description, so feel free to look into that and pick up some cool stuff, or go to an awesome event coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, first things first on the schedule today, guys, is what is the very first thing that people should be introed to Kill Team? So if you just saw it on the shelves, what's the first thing, the most important thing that they should be getting into in order to grab their attention?
I mean, one of the first things that I lead with is just the price, right? It's simply, a lot of people who are looking at Kill Team are familiar with 40K. They usually sort of wander over in the area, and being able to say like, hey, not only can you play with the models you already have, if you want to pick up a new, team and Kill Team, you're just buying one box, right? Yes, those of us who are very intimately familiar with the game know that sometimes you need more than one box, but the general rule is that you can get into it with just one box, and that sort of low cost of entry, that low barrier to entry, is just really, really great for bringing new people into the game.
It's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Orion, you have anything?
I think something that's very important getting into this game is it doesn't really play like any game I ever knew, and there's a lot of words, a lot of vocabulary, a lot of weird stuff, a lot of things you don't normally use. Like when I first got into this game, like rulers, lasers, all that stuff. I'm very excited that I have them all now, but it was a very weird thing to buy like almost a lot of hardware to play a game with toy soldiers. And you don't necessarily need all of that, but it's very helpful to get into this game using stuff like laser pointers for line of sight and, the rulers instead of just like the weird bendy ones. There's a lot of extra entry stuff that you might not know about. You should look up first before getting into it.
That's a good point.
How about you, G?
This one's going to be less about buying stuff, but more of explaining what game it is. So, you might be looking around seeing 40K Age of Sigmar. Perhaps you're in Monrovia, so you're going to see some Lord of the Rings. I think they had a bunch of stuff there. And maybe you're intimidated by it. So like Chris said, this is a easier way to get into the game. But also, it's a great way to meet like-minded individuals who don't necessarily want to jump in full front to get into these big armies, but want to just start something small. So you can meet the community around you, and it's a little easier to get together because the time commitment isn't nearly as big as you need to have it for full-scale war games. Skirmish games are very nice for this reason. So explaining that to new people is good too.
Absolutely. For me, my first thing that I usually tell people is usually they're already interested in it for various reasons, from friends, family members. Maybe they saw it on the shelf. They're saying, what's that? For me, if you're interested in starting Kill Team, I would say look at every single army that is currently available and choose the one you think looks the coolest. Because there's no worse thing than choosing an army that you're not interested in because they're competitive or they're good, but you hate the look and you hate the style of. Because you have to realize that you're going to be staring at these models. You have to paint them. You have to put them together. And, you should do that with something that you think looks cool. It doesn't matter what the rules are. If they end up not being your kind of flavor or play style, once you get into the game, then you can kind of reassess, choose a different team. And, the great thing is that Kill Team isn't a huge price point, right? So compared to other tabletop games. So that would be my first tip for anyone new getting into the game.
All valid.
I
Yeah.
would I would sort of yes and that. I do think there are some important questions to ask up front, like past just the aesthetics. And when I have people getting into the game, I tend to ask a few questions like, do you want to have a few really, really strong people, or do you want to have a horde? Do you like, a lot of close quarters fighting, or do you like long range? So I'll ask those sort of like
Yeah.
central questions just so that somebody's gonna, sort of like, vibe with the end result they're getting.
Hmm.
But definitely like overall, like the look and feel of the team are definitely super.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was mostly interested in Terminators and the Avatar of Cain and Drazar when I first started looking at miniatures back in the year 2000. And I was like, ooh, what do I want to get most? And I was like, I want the Avatar the most. And so I went with Eldar.
Good choice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
I
good
was
choice.
I actually my first time in a hobby store. I was immediately drawn to the Viper jet bike. I thought that thing was the coolest freaking thing ever. Yeah, this was like I think 1999 or 2000, and the store owner persuaded me to buy Space Marine instead.
Mm,
And I, to this day,
Imperial scum.
wonder what would have happened if I'd gone with my original pick build.
Dang.
kind of adding on to what you both said earlier with picking an army. I think one of the things that's important, because it was important for me, was picking an army that you feel comfortable painting.
Hmm.
When I first picked an army, I picked something that just looked super cool. The box art was so fun. Like I picked the Gene Stealer cult for my first Enter to Kill team, and they have a lot of little bits. And it's not exactly the easiest team to start painting compared to a Space Marine, which is almost like a big blank canvas.
Yeah.
And for someone who had never painted anything before, I got so frustrated trying to paint my very first model. His name is Barney, and he's literally just a mass of orange and yellow because I didn't thin my paints. I didn't do
Ooh.
anything that I was supposed to because I didn't know. So I would paint something that you're comfortable messing up.
Hmm. Yeah. Because your
That's a
first
great
paint job,
thought.
your first paint job is probably not going to be great. And that's okay because once you learn how to paint, you can rebuy the team and paint them super well or paint strip them and then repaint them. So for me, I've always kept my first paint jobs that I've ever done. Every time I've gotten better, I kind of kept like one singular guardian, that represents they're all converted into Batmans, but that's
I've seen
besides the
them.
point.
I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah. Guardian Batman. So for the next question for everyone is, what is the most important rule or most important understanding for this? And we'll go through each person. So let's go first.
I'll go first. And one of the things that I feel like I run into a lot of people who haven't had something or haven't had this explained to them in a really concise way. And it's fantasy on open boards. And the way I explain it that seems to really resonate with people is when you're on the tall thing, you can see over the short things, right? And like just like that, and that solves all the questions around concealed behind heavy cover, concealed behind light cover. I don't use the term
That's
light and
super
heavy.
good. That's
I
actually
use the term tall and short, and people totally just clicks. Oh, I'm on a tall thing. I see over the short, and that is like the number one thing I do with new players to help with that confusion.
I kind of wish GW would change all of the rules to tall and short now because it would be way more easy to understand.
Doesn't sound as cool.
If you look at the way that they describe and class all the terrain types, that's always the system. If it's roughly 2 inches taller or higher, it's heavy, and if it's roughly shorter than that, it's light.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, that's fascinating. And then sometimes there's short terrain on top of tall terrain.
Yep,
makes sense.
Easy, yeah.
Cool.
I'm a simple man.
Yeah, I like it. How about you,
Simplicity.
Ryan?
There's two things typically when that you need to just kind of like know. For me, it's one, at least have an idea of what your army can do. Like if you did bring the army and you're playing somebody, if somebody's teaching you, that's obviously different. But if you just brought an army, you should, and you're like, hey, I bought this, let's play. Like have at least look at the rules. Because you can be like, you can kind of reference things and start clicking them. I tend to relate things in my brain. Like I'll have one section and then I'll see it in action on the board and it connects. The other thing would be terrain. Know how to set up a board. I would consider looking up what is a kill team board? What should it look like? More often than not, I see a lot of new players. They're 2 new players. They bought a starter box and they want to get started. And you look at the board and it's Planet Bowling Ball. And they're like, oh, the Marines destroyed my melee team. This game sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, because you just kind of did a suicide charge at them and that was the game. So I would always recommend trying to figure out how the maps should look, or at least a decent idea. That way you don't have a terrible first experience of the one-sidedness.
There's a lot of good map makers out there, right? We have Turning Point Tactics, we have the Into the Dark mats, we have ours, and then I don't think anyone. Do you guys know of anyone else that publishes maps?
I've heard of a forget the name of the site, but they publish really cool Into the Dark maps. Some of them are asymmetrical.
Oh, Lester's Workshop.
Oh,
again.
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So for anyone using GW terrain, I'd look at Turning Point Tactics. Anyone using Into the Dark, I'd look at GW's competitive crit ops. Any of kind of our terrain, or if you want to even style Chalneth or stuff like that, you can look at how we kind of where we put buildings for our stuff. If you don't own any of my terrain, and you can kind of stylize from that too. There's always Hobby Hero too. You can make it yourself. Love making stuff out of styrofoam, and all good stuff to do. Hobby Hero is sometimes the way to go.
Just building it up.
For me, I'd say that some of the most important rules to understand up front is understanding just the data cards themselves. So like, what does each symbol mean on the data card? So like, what is a circle, right? That's 2 inches, right? That's probably some of the hardest things to sometimes grasp. Why does it say this model can move 3 circles and not 6 inches? We'll get to that. Why does this, what does the save mean? What does hit mean? We'll get to some of these as well. So like, understanding your data card is super, super important. In fact, in my opinion, it's more important to understand what your models do than what the main rules of the game are, right? Because the main
you're
rules...
about to tee off my very hot take.
Oh, and secondly, I would say understanding what conceal and engage is, and what those tokens do to your operatives. So whenever you place a model on the battlefield, you can either have a concealed model or an engaged model. And so if anyone's played Gears of War, that's kind of like engaged as you're running around, standing up over stuff and shooting people. Conceal is you're hiding behind the buildings, and you don't shoot, right? Some models can shoot, but that's that's again, understanding your own data sheet. Concealed models are technically hiding, engaged are technically open, and a lot easier to shoot. So,
if you think about it, Gears of War is probably the best way to explain this game, because everything you do in Gears of War is exactly how this game functions. Because when you're on top of a vantage, you can see the dudes are trying to hide, and you can easily shoot them. But if you're not near the edge of the vantage, you can't see them, but they can see you.
Yep.
So you just play Gears of War and you'll understand how this is supposed to look like.
Traversing over the barricades, you run up to it, you hide behind it, then you jump over it, and you're like, oh, run up and stab something. It's good stuff.
It works. It works.
Not to
accurately.
mention chainswords.
Yeah.
So did we just discover like where Games Workshop came up with Kill Team? They just played a lot of Gears of War
in 2000 and what was it, 2006, 2007?
Yeah, I thought it was XCOM that they kind of took a lot from.
Never played.
I could see that too, but Gears of War feels more action packed. You're moving nonstop. But XCOM is probably the most accurate because turn based.
Mm-hmm. How about you, G? Do you have anything like super basic?
Yes. Learn that you cannot traverse with a dash.
Yes.
And understanding why that happens.
Well, what is traverse, Giacomo?
So in order to traverse, you have to use 2 inches of your movement or circle.
And that's usually to go over something that's short / light.
Yes, a little short wall to jump over and then move over, right?
Mhm.
So you would spend 2 inches. So you have a total of 3 inches in a dash. So you'd spend 2 inches of your dash to go up and then 1 to go over. But 1 inch will not clear the piece of terrain that you're supposed to clear. So you can't clear it with a dash.
Because you can never end, your movement can never end while on something that is traversable or something that's short.
Correct.
That actually that's a good segue into another thing. Just another good
Yes.
new player tip is that just fundamentally not understanding traversing and treating it like a teleport. So this is something that I constantly remind new players. When you're traversing a barricade, you're not teleporting from one end to the other and just spending 2 inches. You're simply taking 2 inches off as the crow flies. That's
It's
how
like
it's
a tax.
Yeah, it's a tax because a lot of times people treat it basically like a scramble.
Yeah, you can also traverse sideways. You don't have to just go straight over. You can actually traverse along the length of something and then pop over on the other side.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yep. Because you're just minusing 2.
Yeah.
Now, before we moved on to what's the least important thing, Chris, you said that you had a hot take. Do you want to say what that hot take is, or we want to wait till later?
So it is for the least important thing.
Fantastic.
My least important thing is actually reading the rules.
Yeah, me too.
And specifically,
I've never read the rule book, and I'm one of the
specifically
biggest.
the core rules is what I refer to
Yeah.
because I know that Orion was talking earlier about being familiar with your own operatives data cards, and I do get that, and I agree. When I bring new players in the game, I do not have them read any of the core rules. The first 2 games we play, I verbally explain how things work. I'm describing them. I'm using sort of very simple language. And after the first few games, then I'm like, all right, now go read the core rules. And I find that the uptake and the ability to ingest those rules is a lot greater than just trying to throw somebody into the core rules fresh and get a sense of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Because they don't know what they're referring to when they're reading it. They're like, what does that kind of mean? It's more of a theory. It's not quite a practice yet.
What is light? What is traverse? What is heavy? Well, while you're playing the game, you'll understand a little bit more. Visual learners, I definitely suggest to read the rule book. Anyone who's a tactile learner, definitely play the game beforehand. Anyone who's auditory should listen to this podcast because we'll teach you.
Right. Both.
Yeah, I'll tack on to Chris. I'll jump in here and then I have actually never sat down and read the main rule book front to back.
Really?
And I am one of the probably top 3 TOs in the United States, if not top 5 in the world. Me, G, and Saya as a group, right? We probably run some of the largest tournaments. Now, I have read every single rule, but I have not read them in order. When I was first learning how to play the game, I never opened the rule book. I just had someone teach me, and then I just played, and I just played and played and played, and I learned through experience because I don't learn a lot from reading. In fact, reading puts me to sleep, and I'm sure there's other people out there like that. I listen to audio books on tape. I'm weird.
Real quick, I'm going to stop the recording and start it again because there might have been an error in case we lose anything. 1 sec.
Sure.
Let me hit stop.
Now I have a really good grasp on the rules themselves, right? Like I've read every single rule in the rule book multiple times. A lot of times I'll reread them when certain rules come up or like justifying certain reasons. So for me, I despise having to read. So what I typically do is I only read it when I have to. Got me to here. So if I can do it, you can do it too. You don't have to read the rules, but you probably should.
Hard counter. I read that rule book after playing the first game.
Yeah, I read it before playing the first game.
Dang.
That is fair.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever read the core rulebook front to back either. A lot of how I learned the rules for Kill Team was I actually went on some of the bigger Kill Team Discords. I went to the rules debates channels, and I would just read the rules debates. And that's actually a big way of how I picked up a lot of the fun, intricate nuance of a lot of the interactions. 10 out of 10 would recommend watching angry Discord debates again. Great.
Sometimes they get a little too hot and spicy.
It's great as a bystander.
We need more Flame Wars. Join the Squad Games Discord. We'll have some Flame Wars there if you want.
The Squad Games one tends to be pretty peaceful.
Yeah,
we're
I'd-
pretty peaceful.
yeah, pretty. Yeah, I actually had somebody come reach out to me recently and say like, "Hey, are there any controversial rules that you would like to see FAQ'd?" Right, and the low and short answer is no, because typically any of these ones that should be FAQ'd, I typically talk to people and then I come up with a ruling for how they work at events, and typically that's how it works. Um, it's pretty interesting to think about the rules on more of a meta level, but that's more for an advanced podcast. So we'll keep it beginner friendly here. What about you two?
Yeah, I'll go next. I think the least important thing is playing to win your first game.
Mm,
I've taught so many people who came from 40K. They're very versed in 40K lore. They've played thousands of games with all their miniatures, and they're out here not to look like a fool. So they're trying to like min max and analyze everything that's good, but they have no idea. Like a melt is different in this game than it was in 40K, for example. And you should just be playing to learn everything you can. Try to make everything go off as possible, whether it's a good or a bad choice. You just want to see what it does. If you're going to fire a bolter into the tankiest thing in the world, see what the bolter does.
yeah.
I wouldn't worry too much about just like, oh, this wasn't the optimal play, so I'm not going to do this. I won't use this rule. Just do it. See what happens. You'll learn better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great tip.
Um,
Don't put that pressure on you, you know?
Yeah. That's actually where mine is going to go. Is the least important thing is thinking about winning. What was that one guy's name? Is that guy in history? Musashi, I believe it
Musashi.
was.
You talking
Yes,
about the samurai?
yes. So one of his philosophy was to focus not on the outcome of something you're doing, but to focus on the moment and something else, because then you might trip up, whether it's overconfidence, fear, um, uh, being overconfident too. Did I say that already? I might have said that already.
You talking
Yeah.
about Art of War? Is that what's going on?
No, that's Sun Tzu. But the concept of thinking like, when you're playing the game, like I'm playing to win, so you're always thinking like I have to do this move, I have to do it because it's gonna make me win. But you're more likely gonna choke because now you're thinking too much. Think in the moment and the actions that you have to do. So the least important thing for people, for all players of all levels, I should say, is thinking about the win. Like that's the only thing on your mind, because then you might miss something that's right in front of you when you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about winning. It's fine. It's a game, man.
Yeah, we're just playing with toy soldiers.
We're just playing with toy soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah, your very first game of Toy Soldiers, might we add.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the
So-
sweat comes later.
And the salt. So, who wants to answer this question? How does movement work in Kill Team?
Ooh.
I can answer it. It seems
Okay.
pretty tame. So movement is now. Are we talking about the move action in specific, or are we talking about all kinds of movement?
So either however you see fit to answer for a beginner player, like if I was brand new, how does movement work, Orion?
So I would go over that there's 3 basic ways you can move around the board. These are how your model gets from point A to point B, or from model A to model B. These are all wrapped up in actions. Everything costs a point to do, typically for the universal actions. Everyone has them. And everybody has a move characteristic that's on their data card. I think it's labeled with an M. And it's got a funky little symbol next to it. Everything does. And it takes some time to getting used to the symbol graph, but I'll let somebody else explain that. But basically, whatever the symbol is dictates how many inches you can move with the number next to it. Almost every model, most models in the game, have a 6-inch base move, which means for 1 action point, you spend it on your guy, he can move in a direction 6 inches. Now, it doesn't mean he ignores everything in his way. He doesn't just smack it out of the way, unless you have the fly keyword. That's where you can move anywhere on the board, pretty much do whatever you want. Beyond that, if you just want to move a little bit, or you need some extra movement, you have a dash, which we've talked about earlier. This is a much smaller move, but this is important because you cannot duplicate actions. So you can't move if you have 3 APL. The dash just gets you that little extra edge into cover or into some other spot you want to get to. It's only a 3-inch move. So when you see that, it is important because you can't just fly across the board with as many APL as you have. The third option you have for movement, I guess technically there's a fourth, but it's a little more complicated, would be charging and falling back. This is how melee combat works, and we'll go into that later. But this is another way of how to get model A directly to an opponent's model, because everybody has a little bubble around them that you can't move through. It's just an invisible little 1-inch bubble. The charge breaks that. Also, the fallback breaks that, which allows you to move into that zone. And essentially, that is how your movement works. The charge just gives you an addition of you can move into models, and you get +2 to your movement, unless you have some rules that say you get more or less. It always adds 2. I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think natively.
That was pretty accurate.
One other really important thing to remember as somebody new to the game is that for moves and dashes, you can be hiding or active, conceal or engage, whatever you want to call those terms. It doesn't matter which one you are, right? So if you're moving out and around between cover to hide, you can move dash for that. And also if you're running out to set yourself up for some shooting, you can do it on engage too. All good. However, with a charge, you have to be on engage to do it, which means that after you charge, potentially if you kill your victim, awesome, but now you might be standing out in the middle of an open field, and everybody knows where you are, you just made a bunch of noise, and you could get retaliated against. So that's something.
Yeah.
I'd also add to the movement is to make sure, reiterate that it's all in 1-inch increments. And whenever you're moving in 1-inch increments, you got to move around the terrain and make sure your base doesn't clip the terrain because the terrain still exists. So if you've ever played D&D, it's much like playing on a D&D mat and the grid is invisible. All right. So when you're moving by 1-inch by 1-inch, yeah, that would be my addition.
I think you guys nailed it. I don't really have anything else to add to movement other than remember, if you're using the tools, when you start measuring from the front will end right where the tool ends. You will not be in
Yes.
front of the tool. You will
Correct.
not be in front of the tool because I see that happen. That's a whole extra inch that you're
Mhm.
moving.
Or more.
Or
if you have
more.
a bigger
Depend-
base.
yeah. So watch out for
This is
that.
next.
Yes.
This is an X-wing. You're right.
So does anyone want to explain how shooting works?
Sure, I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So shooting. So there's 2 steps to shooting in general. Shooting is another action, like we talked about, and it's typically going to be one single action point. I don't think we've ever clarified this, but most models in the game, or what the game calls operatives, have 2 actions, right? So they can do 2 things when you decide to act them. Some elite models, Space Marines, things like that, they have 3 actions, right? So they're a little more flexible. They can do a little more stuff. And doubling up again, what Orion talked about, you cannot normally repeat actions. So one of the actions you can do is shoot action. There's going to be 2 steps to this. The first is selecting your target, and the second is actually resolving the shot itself. When you decide to shoot, it's really important for you to actually select the target, which is going to involve basically drawing a line on a part of the base of the shooter and sort of making a cone into the target to check for things like if there's big pieces of walls in the way, so the shot might be obscured, so you can't take it, or if your opponent is hiding behind cover, you also can't take the shot. And if they're, sort of shooting over the cover, going back to our Gears of War analogy, if they're shooting over the cover, they're going to get a little protection, but you can still shoot. So once you've determined you have a valid target, then you go into the second phase of the shoot, which is actually where you start throwing dice, the fun part. Typically, when you shoot, you're going to roll around 4 dice, although sometimes it could be a little bit more. And you're rolling dice and comparing it against the ballistic skill characteristic of the weapon you're choosing to shoot. Most models are going to be hitting on 3s or hitting on 4. It means you're going to find all the dice that are a 3 or higher or 4 or higher, and counting up the ones that make it, and discarding the ones that don't. The special thing to remember here is that 6s are going to be your critical hits, right? So those are stronger hits. They're going to be harder for your opponent to block, which I'll talk about in a second. And they're going to typically do more damage or maybe have some other fun special effect. And you'll check the data card to see what other effects the critical might have. Once you figure out how many total successes you have, including your crits. Then the defender goes on to try to block your attacks, right? So you've got these hits and crits. Now your opponent's trying to stop from doing damage. When the defender, your opponent, will then take 3 dice. Sometimes it could be less, but typically it's going to be 3 dice. And they're going to roll that with their save characteristic to determine how many successful saves and critical saves they have. Once they've determined their final set of saves and critical saves, you're going to compare dice. And saves can block a regular hit. Critical saves can block a critical hit. And you can also combine 2 regular saves to block a critical hit as well. After all that's said and done, so your opponent's trying to basically knock out however many hits they can. Once that's all said and done, if you're left with any hits and critical hits on the table, at that point, you're just dealing the damage. So you're going to look at the damage of the weapon, which is normally denoted by a number / another number. So, for example, a bolter would be 3/4, which indicates that a bolter's regular damage is 3, critical damage is 4, and you'll just apply that damage straight to the wounds characteristic of the defender, which might be enough to kill them. And that's a basic shoot action. Anything I glossed over or I could explain better?
Sometimes there's special rules when you shoot, which you can cover as you play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. Lots of really fun special rules which we can go into. Yeah, for sure.
So another thing that I'd like to say is that shooting is typically, unless if your gun gives you a range restriction. So sometimes next to the gun it'll have like a red pentagon, which means 6 inches. Most guns can fire infinitely, which is 29 inches is the furthest one can shoot, right? Because the game board is 30 by 22. So most guns do not have a range restriction, unlike any other games. If I could also say that I'll make a comparison for the dice when the dice are lined up after both players have rolled. It's much like Magic the Gathering. If anyone's played Magic the Gathering, the attacking player would take a dice and choose whether to just do damage to the player, and then the defending player no, I have that wrong, don't I?
You
Yes.
do.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's for melee. I apologize. So the defending player gets to block everything, and then they'd get to then use the remaining dice to all throw through the attack pool. So melee is a little bit different. We'll do that now. I apologize.
And commonly misunderstood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
to going back to Gears of War and mentioning chainswords, or in this, man, what was the gun called? I can't remember what that gun was called in the game
Ripper
anymore.
chainsaw.
Something like that, and it had the chainsaw bit at the end, which some scientist was like, "Yeah, you'd get guts stuck in there right away, and the gun would totally jam." But forget about real life for a second.
Not if they're using petroleum. No.
But regardless of that, there's occasions when you decide to charge up to them and use your chainsaw. They also have a chainsaw, so then you start combat, and the two of you are both fighting it out. So the way melee works is you
It's the
roll
Lancer assault rifle.
the Lancer, yes.
Mhm.
So when you're in melee, once you're within engagement range, within an inch of a model or within their bubble, as we mentioned earlier, you then take a number of dice equal to the characteristic of the weapon. Generally, it's 4, I think. Generally. So you roll your 4 attack dice, and your opponent will roll 4 of their attack dice for their melee weapon. Then the attacker gets to decide what to do first with their dice. So it's best to line them up and decide if you want to go ahead and have your damage go through, or if you want to block one of your opponent's hits. Then your opponent takes their turn, takes what remaining dice they have, and has the option to either push damage through or to block one of your hits. And you keep doing this until one operative is out of wounds. Or, actually, that's it. Until one operative's out of wounds. Or you're out of dice if no one died.
Mm-hmm.
No, there is one extra thing to that. If you don't want an operative to die, but you did want to injure them, if you have extra dice and your opponent does not, you can choose the parry action, which removes a dice from your opponent's pool. You can choose to parry nothing,
Yes.
meaning you will stay in combat, and neither opponent will die.
Yeah, that's what I forget.
That's a good call out. The thing that I see misplayed with fighting sometimes newer players is that parry is not a reaction. you are not responding to your opponent's hit by parry. That's not how it works. When somebody starts a fight, they decide what they're going to do with their dice first. If they hit you, they just hit you. There's nothing you can do. So parrying is when it's your turn to do a dice in the fight action. You can decide knock out one of your opponent's hits in a fight, or to immediately do damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very. Once you do it a couple times, it becomes very simple. Something that is a little bit different from shooting than from melee is that melee, if you have 2 normal hits, you cannot block a critical hit.
Ah, yes.
So in shooting, you can take 2 normal saves and block a critical hit. In melee, you have to block criticals with criticals. It's very important. Moving on to the next bit. Do you guys want to explain the phases of the game and how the game is typically run phase-wise? So we go initiative, strategy, and then the firefight.
Sure. So generally, when a new turn starts, or in Kill Team, we call them turning points because everything's just got to be very slightly different. When a new turn starts, generally the first thing that's going to happen is both players roll for initiative. So whichever player rolls higher is going to have initiative. That generally winning initiative is to your benefit, and you're going to start doing things first. Most importantly, you'll have the first activation. We'll get a little bit later. But the initiative phase is basically just this roll. Then you move on to the strategy phase. The strategy phase, you're going to do 2 primary things. The first one is playing your strategic ploys, and what these are essentially global upgrades to your army, where you're spending command points, which are a resource that you have and accumulate during the game and can spend on certain abilities. In the strategy phase, you're spending them on team-wide bonuses, right? Anything from making your team better at shooting, better at surviving, turning on some other ability, and some other, sometimes very, very unique things from strategic ploys. Just like many other things in Kill, strategic ploys are played in an alternating manner. So the person with initiative will go first, and then their opponent has a chance to either play a strategic ploy or say, no, I'm not doing anything, and it continues until both players pass. Then you move on to the target reveal part, the strategy phase, and that's where both players will take turns revealing their attack ops or their secondary bonus objectives. So in Kill Team, both players know at the get-go what the primary win condition is, right? This is where the lion's share of the points for the match come from. But each player also has a few secret objectives, that were also called attack ops, that they will reveal during the game, where they have to fulfill some other sort of special conditions, and that happens during this sort of step of the game. Then the meat and potatoes of Kill Team starts, the actual turn, the firefight phase, where the person with initiative will pick a model, activate it, and they will do run through all the actions they want to do with that model. Once that model's out of actions, it passes off to their opponent, and they'll activate their own model, and it goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's a very well put, my friend. Now, moving on to narrative versus competitive. What is the difference?
Yeah, I can start on this one. Most people in this call are what you would call a competitive player. Some of us have done narrative play, but mostly we are in it for the competition. What that means is, more often than not, you are playing your very best on the table. You're playing to maximize your strategies, you're playing to know your army inside and out, and to defeat your opponent. That's typically how it goes. Most of these players show up in competitive tournaments where you have various amount of rounds and one player comes out on top, or sometimes multiple. In contrast, you have narrative play. Now, both are fun, but narrative is more focused on the fun casual side. There's a hobby, there's a theme, there's something you want to convey as a player. Whether it's I want to chop your leader's head off and you go home for the day, even though your whole team gets destroyed. Whatever your narrative is typically what you're playing for. More often than not, you'll find events that are set up as a theme or a setting or some sort of mission agenda that has to carry out, and you have to do certain things to achieve that. Or you and your opponent just have a fun casual game where you don't really necessarily play super sweaty or super competitive min-maxing. You're just doing the things that seem like in a story timeline, they would make sense. And that's the main difference for me in a nutshell of the difference between narrative and competitive.
I think that's great. Anyone else want to chip in?
Well, what I'd like about the difference between narrative and competitive is when you're playing competitive, you're more than likely, like we mentioned, knowing the team inside out. So you're going for the victory. Whereas narrative, although it's still partially competitive, if you're going to a narrative event, no one's trying to lose. You are more likely willing to experiment with a team that you're fairly familiar with to try out something. At least in my experiences, that's what I did with narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And you're supporting the people who are just running those sorts of events.
Oh, there are also separate rules for this game for
Yes.
narrative. That's an important distinction. When you play this game, you don't get all the rules unless you're playing in a narrative-focused setting. There's a lot of equipment, stratagems. There's a whole
Base
bunch
of
other stuff.
operations.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that is added if you play narrative games. Now, these things aren't necessarily the most balanced. They're there, again, for theme and kind of detailing your army based on what happens in your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably the most important thing, is that narrative is a lot more difficult because there's a lot of upkeep and tracking as well. But some people really love that. Like when I first started playing skirmish games, it was back when I think 2004 with 2004 and 2005, and we were playing the Battle for Middle Earth game, and their competitive version, they had ways to, and I don't think it was called competitive, it was something else, but it was, you get to form your battle army, and then your heroes and stuff, and even your little normal dudes, if they survive the battle and they got certain kills, they could upgrade into champions and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun, and I think it was some of the very first iterations of this type of stuff that we see now. There was some stuff in third edition too with or I think it was second edition for dreadnoughts, and each part of a dreadnought had like an upkeep list and stuff like that. So
Yes.
yeah, it was very interesting to say the least. Moving on to the next one. What teams, because there are some teams that are a little confusing. Chris, do you want to go over which teams are confusing from narrative to competitive lists? Because there are some teams that are that you don't know exactly that there's some narrative rules just straight baked into the team.
Well, definitely the one that comes to mind most glaringly would be Novitiates.
Yes.
This is one that was actually widely misplayed when the team was released. So Novitiates have this whole page of rules about all these different specialisms and how they can get more faith points and all the different abilities they can do, and you have to cross-reference the cards. And when I was still fairly new to Kill Team and Novitiates, I remember having a little anxiety, actually, when I was reading the team, thinking, how am I going to keep track of all of these different things during the game and all these little conditions that can trigger to get more faith points? And as it turns out, those are not used at all for match play, which I was very, very happy about.
Yeah, if they were, they'd be an immensely better team, especially on Into the Dark, which they kind of struggle into.
Or Novitiates.
Or Novitiates. Maybe GW will say like all the Novitiates narrative rules are now canon.
That'd be fun.
Oh no!
Rise of the Emperor's Women. So moving on to the next one. How about how is the game different now compared to when it first released?
I think the complexity of teams has changed. So you had Vet Guard and you had Orcs, and I think we touched on this once. If you look at some of the operatives, there isn't a whole lot of special rules. Like it says kind of what it does, and it's done maybe 2-3 sentences. Where now you might have like a paragraph, and then it's referencing a different rule inside something else. So, and I think that's normal with games. You have to keep kind of increasing and getting different teams that do different things to the rules that aren't too similar to another team that does that, or else what would be the point of playing different teams? So a bit more complex, but not overwhelming.
Yeah, there's definitely a rich, broad range of teams going around now, which is great. I would say for me, the biggest change that, now compared to release, I would say actually is just general player skill and knowledge of the game. For some of the early events that came out when people were sort of coming to grip with the Kill Team, and especially how different it was than the prior version, the prior edition of the game. People definitely weren't always able to fully sort of get, the activation system and how fundamentally different this game's spirit is. And when you show up to a larger event now, the shark infested waters. That's been definitely just the best thing to see. Is just so many players getting into the game and really embracing the competitive aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Kill Team is growing quite a lot. And if you're looking to get into Kill Team, this is a great time because the game is very healthy and it's a very good game. So compared to some of the other games out there.
Freakishly well balanced.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to go on a bit of a different note there for a second.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Off the grid. I would say the coverage of this game when it first started versus now has exponentially grown. We have a lot more content creators. We have a lot more actually good bat reps, which are battle reports. They're videos you can watch from people they're starting to figure out their formulas and make really nice condensed kill team games to watch. When you first started, nobody really knew what they were doing, and as well, nobody really knew how to put out a good battle report. But now we have plenty of podcasts to keep you entertained for endless hours of listening to people mumble about Kill Team. And you can really see, and you can discuss things as well with people on things like Discord or Reddit. There's a lot of players that are happy to get you up to speed.
Absolutely. I'm not the Reddit guy myself. Not the biggest fan.
Yeah,
but
well, Reddit doesn't love you.
No, they don't. For me, I think one of the biggest changes is crit ops. So me as a TO, when I go to events, sometimes people show up playing the older attack ops. What attack op is your secondary scoring metric. So there's a primary scoring metric in this game, which are indicated by little objectives on the ground that you have to get to and hold or tap with one of your abilities, right, to score. And then there's the secondaries, which are attack ops, which are other ways that your team needs to score points in order to win the game. And I think that there's been quite a few people that have come to like some of the bigger tournaments and been you can tell that they're new because they're using some of the stuff that are in the main rulebook, and that's fine. The current competitive meta uses a card pack now that is hard to get, but supposedly coming out with another drop here soon. Hopefully it doesn't sell out instantly again, GW. It's called the Crit Ops card pack, and that has updated rules that make scoring secondaries immensely easier than the old stuff, because the old stuff was very difficult to score. So this card pack comes with pretty much all the new ways that you need to score points in the competitive setting. So that's one of the biggest changes that I've noticed outside of how many teams have been released.
Just side noting on that, if you can't get the cards, there are options online. Wahapedia has it's a free access to those cards you can find, along with all the other Kill Team rules. And I think there's a few other folks who have made a database of those cards for free online.
Absolutely. Anyone else have anything else before we move on to the next one?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, how about terrain? Terrain is the next one. There are a lot of people that don't understand terrain for Kill Team, and there is a lot about terrain that is difficult to grasp sometimes. And it's probably one of the most least things to understand initially when you're first starting the game. But it is the most important to realize, like we've said before, if you improperly set it up, you can shoot off the enemy or the enemy can shoot you off, because this is how the game works, right? That's why Into the Dark is such a great terrain set to use, is because if you use some of the new competitive formats for it, it is very much balanced. And you won't get shot off the board turn one, hopefully. Unless you group everything up and a Corsair's model comes over and gets a really big blast on your entire team. Yeah, which has happened to me before. Ask me how I know, Rob. All right. That was my first Into the Dark experience. It was good. It was a good learning experience.
It happens to all of us.
It does. So, is there anything that you guys want to say about terrain? And right now, the most competitive GW terrain that is sold on the market is Octarius. I also really like Fronteris, but Fronteris isn't typically sold as a kill team terrain set.
True.
Nachman gang.
You like Nachman, huh?
I really do.
Yeah, I can enjoy Nachmund.
So Nachmund is not bad, I'd definitely say. I actually really like you guys are both gonna roll your eyes. Everyone's gonna roll their eyes. I like Chalneth if you build it in much smaller pieces. So if you mimic the size of Chalneth in to the same size of Octarius footprints of buildings, I think it's a lot better than those giant buildings that look cool. Unfortunately, I like
my
cooler
biggest
looking
issue
terrain.
with Chalnath is that there's no, in the kit, as printed, there are no light terrain in there. So I really don't like that as far as like introducing players to the game, because it removes an aspect.
Yeah.
I like Into the Dark for teaching. You don't have to worry about all the vantage point stuff if people don't quite get it. The only thing they have to know is how doors work. You get 1 AP, you swing them open. Or if there's someone on the other side, you can't close that door. Other than that, they're either in a room getting shot or they're not.
I mean, hey, that's another thing. You bring up a point with terrain in Into the Dark is those two terrain sets have different rules from each other. So remember that, because blast is more lethal. Same thing with torrent weapons. Indirect is smaller range now. And then you get introduced into the concept of hatchway fighting.
And guard.
So, thinking about the terrain set you're playing on will change the way the game not fundamentally works, but the pace of a game might change in that sense.
The flavor of kill team you're playing is different.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, refer to places that make terrain if you're not quite sure how to build a proper board, or it's your first time. You can try it out and then see what you like, what you don't like, and readjust it yourself.
Yeah, I think that terrain is probably the most important. Is a really important aspect of the game, just because a really bad map can really lead to really unfair advantages for specific teams, right? So that's kind of something to keep in mind when you are developing and playing with terrain or playing the game in general. But it's probably still one of the last things you need to learn in order to play the game. So now on to pro tips. There's a lot of really fun stuff that we can talk about for our casual, normal listeners. Is there anything that you guys want to shout out for some really fun pro tips?
I guess this is sort of a more general pro tip. What I see with a lot of players starting, and especially imports in 40K, is a sort of a lack of recognition on how much deployment matters in Kill Team, and how much it really does matter. Not just if you're deploying somebody on conceal or engage, but also exactly where, and where they're behind cover, how they're going to reach objectives. And one general just piece of advice that I give for players is imagine what you want the start of turn 2 to look like, right? And deploy in a way that you have a game plan to reach that. And that really helps people sort of get through the paces of, okay, so I'll need these people here to get here, sort of that level of planning ahead. So that's like the general pro tip that I would.
My pro tip It's probably one of the most important keywords, I feel, for guns you'll ever come across, and you won't forget your first interaction with it. It's blast. Blast single-handedly can ruin the best player's day, because what it does is normally weapons have a blast keyword, and that denotes how many models they essentially. If you hit somebody with a blast, every model within a certain range of whatever that weapon's blast is also gets shot. It's not like a just little splash or something. It's a full-on, I shoot this guy now, I shoot that guy now, I shoot this one. Everybody who's in that range. It's indiscriminate for the most part. And it's something I see a lot of new players rage quit about and just completely have a terrible time, because turn one, they set all their models up, concealed behind this little piece of terrain. Somebody pops up on a vantage point, or just gets an angle they didn't see, and all of a sudden you got like 5 guys dead before the game even happened. So always ask if your opponent has blast, where it is, and just be aware.
Smart.
Getting blasted. If I had to recommend something, and this comes from Age of Sigmar, don't rely on the double turn, or I guess in this sense, the double activation. There's been many times playing Age of Sigmar and many times playing Kill Team where I get the common thing is like, oh, I hate that we have to roll off to see who goes first. It should just be the next person in line. Well, that's the way they wrote those rules. And usually they're angry about that because they're not necessarily thinking about, well, if I don't go next, what's my play? And they haven't thought maybe that far. So kind of what Chris mentioned earlier is planning your turns. And, that's one of the rules is getting to roll off to see who goes first with initiative. You can't rely that you're going to get it every time. Obviously there's teams who can do certain things about it, but for the most part, it's the roll off and the dice.
That's an awesome call out. I love that. One of the things that I try to have, my own mindset and also coach people on is assume you're going to lose initiative turn 2, right? Just assume you're going to lose initiative and deploy in a way where that's, or, move in a way where that's not going to be something super painful.
Yes.
Absolutely. For me, a pro tip is if a model is already in engagement, you can then move a model that's not in engagement range of that model, as long as you don't end your move in engagement range.
Yep.
So I've done this many times with Vetguard. I will charge a model on purpose, and then I'll move my demo man past those models within an inch, plant a mine, have him dash away, and then blow it up because he has 3 APL from the comms. And then, I'll kill my model that charged, right? But sometimes it might kill 4 or 5 people. You can do this with Space Marines. You can have somebody who's already been charged and charge around them or move around them and shoot and then charge back and get +1 to hit and kill something, right? So there's a lot of really fun ways that you can manipulate movement in that aspect. I'd like to call back to your guys' deployment. One of the reasons why I think Orion is such an amazing player is I haven't got the luck. I haven't been lucky enough to fight Chris yet. But one thing that I've noticed about Orion is that he doesn't make mistakes in deployment. And it's very hard to punish somebody who doesn't make mistakes in deployment. Some of the best players that you see will set up for turn 2 and do these kinds of things and make sure that you can't ever shoot any of their models practically no matter what on turn 1. So that's something really big and huge as well. Do you guys have any other pro tips, or should we move on to the next order of business?
I mean, we can keep going on and on, but sometimes these are new players. They're going to have to learn them for themselves.
Yeah, play the game.
Coming
that's
time.
That's the best pro tip.
There you go.
I'm gonna bring up one contentious rule currently that was brought up to me last night. I want to get everyone's take on this. I think it's pretty cut and dry as to what it is, but this is the best thing about a live talk about a contentious rule is that you get to see like a Discord chat happen or listen to a Discord chat happen right away. Especially if we don't all agree. So it would be Curtain Falls from Void Dancers. It was recently brought to my attention that a lot of players or some players use Curtain Falls. So they'll charge a model from Void Dancers, kill something, and then use Curtain Falls to fall back, even though there's nothing within engagement range. What is your guys' take or about that rules interaction?
I have a very strong opinion on this.
So do I. Let's talk.
And I believe, in my little heart of hearts, that you can fall back in that instance. I believe if you do kill the model and pay for Curtains Falls, that you can fall back. And the reason I say that is it says, the rule specifically, I believe, it says when you... It's not... I have to remember.
It's after you strike with a critical hit,
Yeah, it's
right?
after you strike, you can perform a fallback. Now, there's nothing to say specifically, and again, I could see it going either way. I wouldn't be upset if the rule was ruled in either favor. But the way I see it is, as soon as you strike, I think there is a window where more stuff happens, where that model isn't just removed. Let's say the opponent has a feel no pain. Let's say the opponent has a rule that says strike upon death. In that instance, if they had either of those rules, those happen after the strike, which means you could fall back from that guy. He's still there. So in my opinion, I would say you could still fall back because it's at a strike, not when the model's removed from the table. You can perform a fallback.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to be super boring here and just pretty much agree with Orion. That's my read, and when I've read through the rules and my understanding of them, that's my take as well.
So I will be the dissenting vote. When I think it's super, super clear that it's opposite. And I will give my opinion as to why. So when you say fight upon death, it says they're dead. When you look at when a model is removed from the game, it happens when they reach 0 hit points. And when you look at the fallback action, fallback says that you can only perform this action if it is within engagement range of an enemy operative. When a model goes to 0 wounds, it doesn't matter. It's immediately removed. So like if they have a thing that stops them from doing it, then yes, they could jump back. What I believe Curtain Falls is meant for is that somebody can move in, charge, attack, do one attack action while the model's still alive and then fall back. I think it's a really busted interaction if they could move up, kill something, and then move again. I think it's very not against, I would say, rules as intended is definitely on my side as well.
Well, let me play devil's advocate real quick.
Yes.
They absolutely can charge, kill something, and fall back under your interpretation.
Correct.
As long as they were engaged with another model.
Yes, correct. If there was 2 models, 100%.
So the issue isn't that they killed something.
Well, I would like to play another... I play my trap card.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I have started the turn with a model that has, say, 4 APL. I fight a veteran guardsman. I killed the veteran guardsman.
Correct.
The veteran guard plays in Death Atonement. Am I not allowed to fall back from this model? Am I just stuck there indefinitely?
No, you would, because you could fall back because you're in engagement range of a model.
Correct. But he's incapacitated, right? You said he's no longer there. So what I'm saying
he did specify removed from the kill zone. He did. Yeah. He did address this point.
Yes.
Yeah. So if a model has a, I guess in that instance, when the strike hits, you're saying you would then die and then pay for in Death Atonement, and then Curtain Falls could potentially fall back. That seems like a big step away from strike.
Ooh, okay. I just was reading some of the rules, and here's what I'm thinking. I'm using MTG logic here. And
I used MTG too.
Well, this one has been debated for death for years, and
I can see it either way. I really wouldn't care.
I've always played it, by the way, Dakotah's way, because my understanding of the way it's generally ruled in tournaments is that you cannot fall back after incapacitating the single enemy operative. But that doesn't support my personal rod.
I'm thinking that, at least when I'm reading here, maybe I need to get the definition of a strike. A strike is just I choose to hit you, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. All right. So then I would interpret it like this. You go back and forth. It's the Void Dancer's last dice. They choose to strike and play Curtain Fall. Curtain Fall immediately happens and ends that combat. Now, according to that, it would end the combat and not actually kill the model because you would never do damage. You're ending combat before the damage goes through, correct? Because strike doesn't actually deal damage?
Strike does.
It does the damage.
It says if they strike, inflict damage on that target, which would then drop it to 0.
Really? Because I'm reading it, at least the way it's written here from the page. After an active friendly Void Dancer troop operative strikes, immediately end that combat, and that friendly operative can perform a fallback action for 1 AP.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so it's here's where the vagary comes in, right? When exactly is after the strike?
Yeah, this is the problem that we don't have the answer to, is what happened. Is there a window? Is there a separate little sub-step in there that we don't know about? Because the rulebook, it doesn't say.
Mm-hmm.
There could be a little sub-step in there. There could not. And then it's just quite literally how it's interpreted.
Right. Because
in my opinion, since the rulebook literally has nothing about any sort of other step, I think that there doesn't exist. And then there are some rules that just say when a model, instead of removing a model, you don't remove that model, right? Like the same thing when the Angels of Wrath or the Space Marine tac ploy or Only in Death, like those specific rules stop the model from being removed because it is a rule that stops it from being removed.
Yeah, this is a weird one.
I
would assume you don't do
There's
damage.
a reason this one has been debated.
Yeah, I would assume that you wouldn't do damage because it's a strike but not perform damage yet, right?
But it says after the strike. Part of a strike is doing the damage.
Correct. A strike is defined as also doing damage. Yeah.
Ooh, then that is a tough one. All right. Yeah, this gets weirder.
Mm-hmm. Go down the rabbit hole we go. All right, so let's not spend years debating it on the Squad Games podcast. We'll move on, and everyone else can tell us their thoughts and stuff on this particular rule on our Discord, and I'm sure it'd start a little bonfire in there. All right.
I'm sure we will reach a conclusion that everybody agrees with.
I'm sure everyone will be really happy about the conclusion.
This is a majority wins kind of conclusion.
No, it's the TO decides.
That's what I mean. Majority TO.
Right. The TO calls it.
All right. So we're moving on to something special now, something that we all cooked up, and I believe it was Orion's original idea. Was it? Or was it? Yeah. Yes, it was.
Yeah, I reached out to everybody.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us what this is and what TV show inspired it?
All right, well, it wasn't actually so much the TV show as Salvation inspired it. So I had seen on Reddit, anytime there's a new box coming out, people are always like, ooh, what's it going to be? What do you guys want to see? And everybody just has the most unhinged takes about what that box is going to be. And I'm like, some of these are really funny. So I have put 2 and 2 together here. I've used both of my brain cells to come up with a sort of Kill Team game show here. And what this is based on is Shark Tank. Now, what our contenders here are myself and, the handsome Chris Baki. What we're going to be doing is we've made a list of 4 boxes. They go into various details on what these boxes have in them, but, if there's a little narrative focus, etc. And we are giving that list to our opponent. Neither of us have seen each other's list. And what we have to do is we're going to send them to each other one at a time. Dakotah and Giacomo here are our investors, and they have to pick which box they would invest in for the future of Kill Team. And obviously here, whatever happens from there happens. But we are going to me and Chris are going to do our best to persuade you to invest in our new box. This is Kill Team wrong answers only.
We may also ask you guys on the spot about specific rules about your supposed kill teams, so that we may, if something's really crazy about it, who knows if we'll invest. So
it's curtain falls all over again.
Exactly.
That's just gonna be his first question for every box.
Imagine a whole team of flying APL3 models. That'd be
nuts.
That's why it came out in White Dwarf, right?
All right, so I'm going to send my first one to you here, Chris, in a second. Just give me because I have it on my phone. Now, because I came up with this idea, I'm going to let Chris go first because he is our challenger here.
Oh,
for investment.
All right, gentlemen.
Yes.
Are you ready for the Alpha and the Omega? Strike from the sky and tunnel from underneath in Adeptus Wackius. All right, this pits 5 Vanguard veterans, the elite of the elite with jetpacks, against the devious and sneaky Tyranid Raveners. And what better place for this ultimate combat but a blasted moonscape full of craters, with the Raveners burying below and the Vanguard vets jumping from crater to crater, striking their foes down wherever they can see them. It's the ultimate in whack-a-mole. Meet Adeptus Wackius.
All right. I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
So, with this terrain full of craters, are you trying to make Pathfinders win?
Absolutely. As we all know, the moon is made of cheese, and nothing is cheesier than Pathfinders. So, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Bring them back. We missed them.
Yeah, we missed them. We missed them so desperately.
Now, the good thing, though, is that even though Pathfinders will be broken against every other team, Vanguard vets and Raveners specifically have rules specifically designed to counter Pathfinders. So it's fine for these two. So buy the box.
Can you explain a little bit about what those specific rules of countering the Tau menace is for the Raveners?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the Raveners, obviously they can burrow. And there's a bunch of really cool things with the burrowing, right? They basically spend an action point to be taken off the table, and then the next turn they can spend an action point to pop up anywhere. And the really cool thing about that is that any marker light tokens they may have had when they burrowed are removed, and it specifically calls out marker light tokens. Again,
I'm
good
really
box
liking
if
this
you
box.
want to beat the Pathfinders.
Okay,
but
and
if
how
you don't
about
buy
the
the box
Vanguard?
and you're playing on the terrain, you're screwed.
All right, and how does Vanguard beat the Pathfinders?
Well, so the Vanguard veterans, obviously they have jump packs, right? So what they can do is they can spend an action point where they're taken off the table, and then the next turn they can spend an action point to strike down from the sky, and they can land anywhere they want, even in engagement range. And there's also a special rule for the Vanguard veterans that if they had any marker light tokens, all the marker.
Oh my god! So with the obvious counter to Pathfinders,
just remove marker lights. Don't be on the table.
It sounds like
specifically calls out marker lights. Yeah,
it sounds like I can go up into the sky or burrow below for 1 AP, and then next turn I can dig myself up or come down from the sky, do a strike, and then I could do that again and either go up or down. Is that correct?
Yeah. Every turn you're doing it, but it's balanced by the fact that you only have 5 Space Marines and only 5 Raveners. So it's basically like pre-buff Compendium Marines. How bad could it be?
Okay, got it. So I'll tell you the things I like about this pitch. I like that they both fuck over Tau immensely. Okay.
Before you get into the pluses and minuses here, I want to pitch mine.
All right. So fair.
We got to compare notes here.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Orion. Baki, do you want to send yours?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm setting up my PowerPoint. Give me a second.
Yeah.
A PowerPoint.
Another story. Oh god.
I'm a fan so far. I'm liking this. Gee, did you like that one?
Yeah, I like how ridiculous you could be with it. But if you choose to be that ridiculous, you can't really score objectives. So that's the trade-off.
Yeah, who needs to win? Remember? Don't you remember your
exactly?
All right, guys. So we've done our market research. We know what the player base wants.
Okay,
they've been screaming from the heavens, and it's Kill Team Space Hulk. Now everyone's excited about it. It's a classic. It's going to be a Season 4 launch box, right?
Okay.
It's maybe a new event edition. Who knows? I mean, the rules might. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
But it introduces, things for both. It'll be playable in both editions, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it's going to do is bring us 2 classic teams, 2 iconic enemies, Terminators and Tau Breachers. That's right. The Terminators hit the board with 5 operatives and a cat, and the Tau Breachers come with 12 operatives. Now, that may be sounding one-sided, but hear me out. Terminators fuck.
Okay.
This terrain will be similar to like the classic Gallo fall boards, all right? It's going to be tight corridors, multi-levels. You can come in from vents and stuff, just like a Gene Stealer would, right? But with no Gene Stealers. Because we've done our market research, everyone hates Gene Stealers. It's a mega turnoff. Nobody wants them. We solved, they got these weird little hands, and the market research said, no, too many hands. So that is what we're going to do. Yeah. Terminators and Tau Breachers.
Okay. Now, how are you going to differentiate Tau Breachers from Imperial Navy Breachers?
Now, you might think that, right? But some people might say, oh no, it's just another 12-man spam team. What's different here is these are blue.
Okay. All right.
What about being blue makes them different?
Do they suck?
Oh, no. Tau naturally has to be insane. And the reason we're doing this is because there's a specific box that may come out that would really counter them. So in this box, they're going to be really overpowered. You have a rule that says their marker lights can't be removed, regardless of any rule that says so.
Oh my goodness! The counter.
I didn't even know breaches use marker lights.
Yeah, it's the close quarters marker lights ploy, and then blitz marker lights, obviously.
Blitz marker lights, where you can marker light 3 times. You got it.
Now, would Pathfinders find it difficult to play against breachers?
Oh, absolutely. You think you can find a path in the dark? That's not even possible.
I mean, notoriously, they have tucked into the dark.
Yeah, they don't. The breachers don't care where they're going. They're breaching. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's left, right. They're going. Now, but they're going to hit Terminators eventually. The Space Hulk's massive. There's got to be Terminators in there somewhere.
At some point, right? We've been waiting, and I love the concept. I love where this is going. What are your units looking like, and what are your distributors thinking in terms of boxes they're looking to get?
So we thought about our company and the player. This is a combined effort to make all people happy, and what we're doing is we're using old metal Terminators on their classic base side.
Hey, I love metal. Hey.
Exactly. This is a box that's meant to be ode to the classical player, because there's no more classic matchup than Terminators versus Tau Breachers.
Fair. Okay. Now, I have to write marker lights never removed. Never removed. Now, your Terminators, I am looking to know what their specific team's rule is. Like how each team, like Corsairs, get an extra dash whenever they want because they're elves. What is the Terminators team's specific rule?
You see, what they do, I mentioned their mechanic before briefly. It's they fuck.
Okay,
and what that means is if you roll enough dice, yes, please. If you need spelling, I got you. What they do is they roll dice, and if you're not happy with it, just change them all to 6s.
Okay. Change to 6s. Okay. I like that because they fuck up Tau Breachers now. Because
there is a thing that marker lights can reduce the amount that you can fuck. So there's a balance there. Again, destined soul-crossed enemies here.
Got it. Okay. G, do you have any other questions about what is this box's name?
Oh, it's Space Hulk.
Okay,
everybody knows that.
Just Space Hulk. Okay.
Yeah, Kill Team Space Hulk. It's a classic edition. Everybody knows what that means.
Okay, team, and we have Adeptus Wackius.
2 incredible names for 2 incredible box sets.
Okay, let's go over the plus and minuses of both these teams. Adeptus Wackius, G, what are your bonuses? Your bonuses and negatives.
Let's see. Aren't Raveners rather large?
They are. I think they come on 50 millimeter basis.
How many are you fielding in this team?
5.
It's 5.
Wow. There's no cons here. I can't see a single one.
Okay.
Do they have super conceal?
You bet they do.
Well, they're underground.
Yeah, they're in the moon.
No, and I'm talking
dingus.
above ground. They still have it. They're like snakes. It's fine. They just hide behind whatever. It's good to go.
Oh, they're on 40 millimeter bases. Okay, so I actually really like the Raveners for a potential kill team. Actually, and the things that you'll find the way to Dakotah's heart is killing
base.
Tau, and also like I'm
Killing
very
Tau?
logical.
Yeah,
I'm very
I will
logical.
say the advantage is this box does not introduce any new Tau, and in fact only hurts Tau.
Now, contrary to what he says there, my box actually comes with a narrative list where we double any effects that the data slate may had on Tau against Tau.
Okay.
So if it's -1 operative on the data slate currently, you can
Okay.
take this as an equipment and it doubles the data slate.
Okay. Fair enough.
Now,
For
in both of
CP
these
worthy
box
costs.
sets, have you thought about the repercussions that perhaps Tau will then get stronger in a further data slate?
Oh, no. Absolutely
that's not
That won't
possible.
happen.
No.
Okay. G, bonuses and negatives for Tau breachers versus the Terminators.
This is a tough call.
I love Terminators. I love them.
Yeah.
I hate Tau.
I mean, I
Better way
see
to
that,
kill them
I see
than
that as your
Terminator.
pro. I'm trying to find a downside here, but I can't quite find it besides the fact that they have rules that actually hurt other teams. The breachers, that is. Do you think you could take that rule away and just make Terminators better?
They fuck harder. Can you make Terminators fuck harder?
We'll put a GW brand marker in there, and whatever you write in your book will be official.
Okay.
I can live with that.
Okay. All right. All right. So, G, who you giving the point to this round?
The point. I gotta go with Terminators.
Yes. Thank you, investors. You won't regret this.
Of course you do, G. I have to go with the Raveners and Vanguard.
There we
vets.
go.
I have to.
Sense
I have
and
to.
reason has returned.
Yes. All right. So ultimately, both boxes are getting funded. They are going to printers. Fuck cults. The new meta is to fuck Tau. All right. Moving on to the next round. Who's going to go first on this one, fellas?
Do you want me to go first, or I'll send Ryan the first one?
Sounds good.
Sure.
All right.
Now, G, I thoroughly liked our previous guests and contestants' teams. I'm looking forward to if they can top those, because I think I'm going to ultimately give a double bonus point to the overall best team pitched at this one.
Now, I'm aware that you're a big fan of what we just released, but what I'm looking forward is into the future and seeing how soon these boxes will not be available at your local game store.
And it's FOMO. They're gonna sell out immediately.
They sure are.
Hell
And
yeah.
in knowing GW's supply chain, it is going to be rough to find these.
And that is what I'm for, is for the scalpers here.
All right, guys, we got our second box here. It's coming in hot. It's coming in tactical. It's Kill Team Primaris.
That's
That's right. We
Primaris.
got Primaris Lieutenant Kill Team versus Warp Spiders.
Okay. All right.
This assembles every Primaris Lieutenant ever made versus Warp Spiders. In the battle for the most commonly updated models versus the models left behind most notoriously. Featuring 5 brand new Primaris Lieutenant sculpts, bundled with five Finecast Warp Spiders.
Finecast Warp Spiders.
With the Finecast upgrade sprue.
Oh, no.
This is taking place in a completely new field for Warhammer, Imperial City Ruins.
Okay. Imperial City Ruins.
Haven't heard of that one before.
It will be ruined. You will be. It won't lie.
Okay.
There will not be a
So-
single intact wall.
No, nothing will be intact. It'll look terrible.
Okay. So I will say that I'm a huge fan of the Primaris Lieutenants and the meme. And in fact, if they wanted to do a new lieutenant at every single one, I actually wouldn't be mad about it because I collect them all like a Pokemon collector. Finecast Warp Spiders, you got me there. Why is Finecast better than plastic?
Well, why isn't it? It's fine. Like, Plastic sounds clunky. It's, the dark gray. Finecast, it's nothing but smooth sailing, okay? It prints like a dream, and it'll play like a dream on your board. You don't even need to paint them if you don't want. I mean, it's such a beautiful, sculpt. You wouldn't need anything.
You've seen these sculpts, right? You've seen them from the
yeah.
80s, right? All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I sure have.
All right. I own
Now
8 of
they're
them.
in Finecast, so
You own 8 so far.
I own 8 metal ones. I don't know if I touched the Finecast ones. Now tell me what their rules have to make up for the fact that they're Finecast, right? Like, what are the rules for warp spiders?
Well, I mean, their first thing is they're going to warp around. They do have a rule, though,
Warp
where
around.
Yes, so they can go along the battlefield.
Okay.
They come in and out. Warp spiders, duh. They can also, though, fail the roll. So there's a bit of a trade-off. And then when they do fail the roll, because Finecast is so finicky often than not, you have to break the model.
Oh, I kind of like that. All right.
Hmm.
So smash with hammer.
It's literally a glass cannon kill team. Brand new to the scene. We've never seen anything like this.
Okay, so if you roll double ones when they're moving around, you have to smash them with a hammer. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Anything suitable as well. You could also use more Primaris Lieutenants that you have with you to smash them.
Okay. All right. And they're relatively expensive, right? Because they're Finecast.
Yes,
Yes.
they're fine.
All right. Now, tell me about these lieutenants. What special rules do these bad boys have?
Well, they're all going to have varying degrees of bolters. And what that means for them is each bolter is going to be slightly different. You have to find the Easter eggs to tell which bolters do which thing. And you don't have to tell your opponent this is the rule.
Okay.
Which they have to guess which bolter is correct on each Primaris Lieutenant in order to play the game and, compete. If they don't guess the bolters right, then they just lose. It's a mind game.
Okay.
So
Fair.
will this team get continuously, the Primaris Lieutenant team, will they get continuously updated as more lieutenants come into fruition?
I'm glad you asked that. At this time, we don't like to announce more models would come out, but in the future, if they did, this team would be our first ever live kill team where the list adds more Primaris Lieutenants each time a new one would come out.
Incredible.
Live kill team. Live.
Games as a service, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So what I've written down is that each bolters do different /secret live kill team. Incredible. Warp spiders are warp around, fail roll, smash with hammer. Love
Finecast.
it. All right, moving on to Baki. Do you have your next list ready for us?
almost working.
Almost
on it
working
here,
on it. He's still
right
setting
now.
up. He's still setting up.
Still setting up.
Yeah, still setting up.
Got the curtain.
I thoroughly enjoyed the last one, specifically the Primaris Lieutenants. I am a Space Marine Lieutenant man. What did you enjoy most about the last team?
I love the fact that they are keeping tradition with the Finecast models and will continue to upset Eldar players for years to come as new Primaris Lieutenants come out.
I want to strangle you right now.
All right, gentlemen, are you ready
Uh-huh.
for the true next generation of kill? So, we've been doing a ton of market research. We've been poring over the demographic data, and we've identified one specific audience that has not really embraced Kill Team. That audience is new mothers. So what we've decided is you put this box together, right? We're calling it Kill Team Maternitus. Now, the idea of Kill Team Maternitus is that we are introducing, for the first time ever, brand new edible sprue technology. That is right. That means that each box of Kill Team Maternitus comes with 2 sets of each sprue. One is regular plastic, and one is completely edible. And the best part is, these sprues are visually indistinguishable. That way, the child eating the sprue will get that visceral real life experience of feeling like they're eating plastic. So this is truly something that's immersive gameplay experience for these unborn children in the womb. The box also contains a set of Primaris lieutenants, obviously, pitted against their rivals, Chaos Marines. Now, these Chaos Marine sprues are not with the edible version. We could only produce at scale enough the edible version for the Primaris lieutenants. So the Chaos Marines are piloting another new technology for us. Now, we've gotten a great amount of market research and feedback on the quick build, easy to build kits. But what we haven't really truly seen is easy to destroy kits. Specifically, the feedback that young children really like destroying these miniatures, yet we've consistently failed to provide the market with a great opportunity for destroyable miniatures. So these Chaos Space Marines are specially engineered and designed for no matter how carefully you glue them and pin them, to be easily destroyable by any child of 5 years of age or less. And that's Kill Team Eternatus.
So it's Primaris Lieutenants versus the Chaos Marines.
Correct.
The Primaris Lieutenants are they have edible components, and the Chaos Marines are easily destroyed by the children of the mothers as they're put.
Correct.
Okay.
So this serves the needs of the mothers, the unborn children eating sprue, and the newborn young children eating or destroying miniatures. It's truly checking off many boxes.
So what's fascinating is that there's two Primaris Lieutenant teams here. That is fascinating. That are they just gonna be coming out with that many lieutenants? Now, does this lieutenant team have the same rules as the last, or does this one have completely different rules?
This one has completely different rules, and that's the truly exciting part.
Now, when future lieutenants come out, will they be edible for this team?
We're still working on that. So the logistics of this edible sprue has been a little bit challenging. Got to be just full transparency here. We haven't quite been able to hit most of the margins that we were looking for. So we've actually decided to update some of the box art. Now, in the United States, there's this organization called the FDA, and we've had to, I'll use the term negotiate, some of the wording on the box to really be specific about the nutritional content of the box. But preliminary findings do indicate that mothers are 300% more likely to buy this box than any other Kill Team box, mostly due to the added nutritional value.
That is fair.
Very
that is
interesting.
fair. Yeah, that is very, very fascinating. What flavor is this sprue?
We have actually piloted 2 different flavors. We have a blue flavor and a green flavor, both of which have tested very well.
Okay.
Blue and green, you say?
All right. So what special rules does your lieutenants have, and why is it better than the last lieutenants?
Well, so the Primaris lieutenants here, again, we're really targeting this pregnant mother demographic, and so the rule for the lieutenants for this team is it's actually ties into a partner deal we've got with DoorDash. And so the way the mechanics are set up is that whenever a Primaris Lieutenant operative is incapacitated in this team, we have a little RFID chip. Again, this is only on the sprue that is not edible, which is visually indistinguishable from the edible sprue. Really got to emphasize that point. But when a Primaris Lieutenant operative is incapacitated in this team, it actually automatically fires off a signal to DoorDash to bring the mother whatever food she may need at the time, to make sure that she is, of course, well fed whenever she may get it.
Now,
Okay.
does that team make for a convenient travel size snack as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Truly kill team and eating on the go.
Because I was curious about pregnant mothers who already have children.
That's what the Chaos Marines are for.
Ah, okay. Yes. We're back to the easy destroy.
Okay, so what does the Chaos Space Marines, the easily destroyable, do? What is their special faction abilities?
So the Chaos Marines were really embracing a lot of the trends in the lore that we've been seeing. Historically over the difference between the new Primaris Marines and the classic Firstborn Chaos Marines. So the Chaos Marines in this box are going to be very similar to the Chaos Marines you know and love in the Compendium. But after some initial feedback testing, we've decided to all reduce them by 1 wound, bringing them down to 10 wounds. We think that's just a better fit for overall our target demographic. So their special rules, they have -1.
Okay. -1 wound. -1.
Just naturally have one less wound. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fuck chaos. Okay. Fan of that, bad boy. Fan of that. Now, G, who are we giving the point to? Who are you giving the point to?
I'm conflicted. Both of them have lieutenants.
I will. So am I. I think I'm actually gonna go with Orion and his fine cast warp spiders.
Yes. Everybody knows it's the favored material.
And the Primaris lieutenant specifically having a live updated kill team is a big fan of
pretty cool.
Yeah, big fan. How about you, G?
It's gotta go to the easy destroy Chaos Marines. It's the new innovative. It's the new innovative model. It's something we haven't seen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that you're branching out to a different demographic. I will say that. Okay. You don't see a lot of moms get involved this early on in their childhoods.
Capturing those verticals, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Right in that first
Literally.
trimester.
Mm-hmm. Now, do we have another team ready to go for both of you?
Yeah, I believe we both had 4 total. So
Four
I have
total.
2 more. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing.
Up to you. However long you want this to
I am going. We are going full forward.
We're having a good time?
Yes.
Yeah, I have 2 more as well. I'm ready to go.
I don't care what my listeners think. I am having a great time.
All right. Baki, I'll give you the honors of going first here.
Sounds good. I have initiative.
Now, I do have to add a little caveat here. This is one I have stolen from Reddit. This is one I thought was really funny, so I'll give credit where credit's due. This did not come from me.
Hashtag thank you, Reddit. Don't say that very often.
He does not.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
I mean, look, we have trimester technology now. You know,
I'm
there's
pretty sure Baki just mutes himself this whole time.
there's nothing we can't handle now.
Gentlemen,
Absolutely not. Yes.
is it not the little things that truly bring joy in life? We've seen countless kill teams with giant operatives, with huge space marines, and giant Gellerpox Nightmare Hulks, and these giant Tyranid warriors. But think of the little guy. Introducing Kill Team Dirty Jobs. This box is between Grots and Nurglings, both teams with 20 operatives. Now, the pitch here is that this isn't your old standard matched play box where narrative takes a back seat to the sweat, competitive tournament nerds. No. This is a focused box for narrative. Just like Ashes of Faith, not really a competitive thing, really focused on the story and the lore. So in this box, the Grots are our protagonists, and they are on a special mission, straight from the big boss to blow the pants off the enemy. Now, you may ask, where is this special mission taking place? And the great news is, with such tiny operatives, we truly have a completely blown open landscape. And what more of a great environment for these 2 cracked teams to play than the tunnel inside the rear end of a great unclean one. I'm talking about a dark, dimly lit passage where a great unclean one may pass excrement. So this is a brand new novel idea, very much inspired by Into the Dark, but very much in the dark, very much where the sun don't shine inside a great I'm
So
ready.
there's no vantages, right?
No vantages. There can occasionally be chunks to stand on, but
Okay.
otherwise no vantages.
Got it.
Interesting. You say this is a narrative box, correct?
Correct.
How soon will players disregard the narrative? Is it going to be faster than Ashes of Faith? Do you think we can get that? We can get there?
Yeah, preliminary research has shown us that it takes players on average about 35, 36 seconds to skip over the narrative rules and go straight to match play.
Wow, that was theoretical. The theoretical limit has been blown.
It has doubled the Ashes of Faith time, which is something we're really proud of. Mostly what we found was that our the people going over the rules tended to linger a long time on the pictures of the kill zone. We're not sure why. That appeared to draw a lot of attention. So we're still looking at that.
so I have a question. Now, anyone who's listened to the Squad Games podcast knows that I like protagonists. I'm a big fan of having protagonists. That's the reason why I went with the Vanguard Vets. They have the power, right? And then I also went with the Primaris Lieutenants. Well, there's 2 Primaris Lieutenants, but that's besides the point. Who is the leader of the Grots, and who is the leader of the Nurglings, and why are they better than the Inquisition's leader?
Well, so when you hear about a Grot kill, right, you're going to have a knee-jerk reaction who you think the leader might be, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, everyone's going to say, the Red Gobbo. Now, this mission, the Red Gobbo is not fit out for this mission, right? Clearly unqualified, not suitable. So the leader for this kill team is the Brown Gobbo, which should be self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm. Brown Gobbo. Okay.
Now, the Nurgling kill team, Nurglings have a very different sense of hierarchy. So the Nurgling leader, and obviously as the antagonist, is shrouded in mystery, known only as the Fat One. The Nurgling leader has a series of abilities that mostly relate to consuming his comrades.
Okay. That's an interesting
other ones. I really like that mechanic. It hasn't been seen in Kill Team.
Now, what are the future terrain expansions in the next box sets planning to be? Are we still sticking to the rectum, or are we looking to go further?
We are considering going full bore potentially into even the small intestine. We have some future expansions planned for that. Yes, very exciting.
Very good.
So what are they battling for in this narrative? This is a narrative styled box. So what is the ultimate goal for these 2 teams?
Well, it's simple. The Grots need to blow the pants off the enemy. I mean, it's on the tin, right? The Great and Clean One is currently wearing pants, shambling as they are, and the Grots are on a special mission to create some sort of concussive air-based force in the rectum to blow the pants off the Great and Clean One.
Okay, that is fair.
May or may not involve beans.
Okay.
This is going to be a colostomy bag size surprise.
So I would be fair to assume that instead of throwing grenades, they have cans of beans.
Yes, the Grots don't have frag or crack grenades. They have cans of beans that really do the dirty work for them.
And they could also kill a Nurgling with a can of beans. So all right, I'm a fan. All right, you got a lot ahead of you, Orion.
No, man.
This is going to be a hard one to beat, my friend. So, are you ready with it, or do we? Shortly.
Don't worry. My assistant just sent it to me. I'm going to double check to make sure she knows how to spell correctly.
Okay, yes. Got it. So Giacomo, I thought that the last one is definitely the darkest and of depths of Kill Team that we've seen thus far. What did you think about the setting of this Kill Team, and do you think that it's going to play well in the main media of since Games Workshop is going more mainstream?
Well, I definitely think so, but at the same time, they're bringing the grim darkness of the far bathrooms. That's what I like to see. We're getting real dark here.
Fair.
They might need to check it with their doctors. Actually,
okay.
It's that dark.
All right, guys, that was a pretty cool presentation. Well done to Baki. That was good marketing. But we know what the gamers want.
Okay.
They don't want buttholes. Okay. They want power fantasies.
Okay.
This is the ultimate fan service box to every Kill Team fan out there. The Kill Team power fantasy pits the most lethal, terrifying humans known to the Imperium of Man against each other. That's right. We're going to have Imperial Assassins, the devastators that they are, versus Chaos Knights. It's the ultimate end-all, be-all of pure power in kill team scale, clashing on a battlefield reminiscent of the gladiatorial Thunderdome. You heard it. That's right. We're going to be in a big old coliseum. There's going to be fans. You can kill the fans. Don't worry about it. We'll get to those rules specifically. There will also be plenty of traps on the ground. There'll be lions. There's going to be plants, because who doesn't love plants? Foliage makes everything nicer. And what we're going to see is 3 Imperial Assassins taking on however many Chaos Knights your opponent can physically afford.
Wow. How is that going to be any sort of balance?
Well,
not
you may
a
think,
power
right?
fantasy.
You may think, oh, this is unbalanced. But you have to remember, they probably took out a loan on their house to get these Chaos Knights, so you're probably ahead in life in balance.
Fair. That is fair. Now, I'm very interested in how you can kill fans and lion models.
That is a great question. So, as we know, Kill Team is based on an AP system. And for 1 AP, you can kill the booers. And what this does is, instead of fighting your opponent, you can immediately take your models into the stands and go on a full 1 minute, 100 dice roll where you just slaughter humans left to right.
All right. I could like that. I can dig that.
Once you reach 100 dice, you have to get back to the board.
Is this also a narrative styled box? Because they've been so balanced so far.
It's fan service, right? So how could it not be narrative? It's every gamer's power trip. Have you ever seen a person just get way carried away with their roles and how strong their lore is or their homebrew chapters? This is for them. These players will be able to spit a full hour on the lore of their teams and how strong they are and how unbeatable they are. This box is meant for these players.
So how does a Vindicare assassin kill a Chaos Knight?
Very elegantly. You know, the assassins, the Order of Assassins, they've been known all over to do all sorts of crazy things. Most of them will just shoot it, you know, and that's one way to kill it. The bullets always work. I don't think the Imperial Man has ever solved this problem where, you know, bullets don't work. And if they don't work, then we just make them psychic bullets and they work again. So anything that these assassins can come up with in their giant arsenal of 100 equipment pieces, they can utilize to take down the Chaos Knights.
Okay.
Interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Quite the power fantasy.
And
But why
so-
not Ultramarines?
Some are in the stands.
So
That was the perfect answer.
so Chaos Knights. Now, what makes them more balanced? Do they only hit on 6s because they aim at so badly? Like, I'm struggling to see how balanced this team would be, or do we just have like Colts 2.0 all over again?
So the thing about it is, this is a normal sized arena with a full on Chaos Knight in it, maybe more.
Okay.
So they're really going to be struggling. The more Chaos Knights you bring to the board, the clunkier their movement will be, and there's greater chances for them to actually just destroy themselves. Meanwhile, the assassins are running around recklessly, you know, just taking these things down left and right. So if your opponent wants to get greedy and take out a loan on their house to put more knights on the table, they may pay for it by not having room.
That is fair. That is fair. Okay. All right. Is there any special rules that you would like to highlight for this? Do the fans do you get models for the fans, and do the fans get to attack any of the operatives inside the arena?
Yes, you do get models for the fans. However, to fully complete the set, you need to buy at least 20 boxes,
20 boxes,
to have a
got it.
full-scale arena.
20.
Sounds
of all the
reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
That way you get the full immersion, and you can then proceed to slaughter those fans to your heart's content. Now, those fans can be, you know, any sort of model that we throw in there. What we actually do is we go in the back rooms in the storehouse, and we just, any models that are extra, we just package in those boxes. So it's kind of like a random variety pack of who's in the stands.
Gotchas. I like the introduction of gotchas.
Now, you can also throw them, as in any classic fighting game, they're weapons as well. So if there's anything that you can physically throw with your models at the Titans, you'll be able to throw it.
Now, I would assume that there are very specific hidden, hard to get models in order to sell more of this box, because how do you sell such an expensive box? Because Chaos Knights are so expensive. How is this going to be profitable for Games Workshop?
There is one trebuchet in one of the boxes that we print.
Okay.
And you can use the trebuchet to destroy a Chaos Knight.
Now,
But it will only be one.
is this the old metal trebuchet from Warhammer Fantasy?
This is just a classic wooden trebuchet. There's nothing crazy about it because we want it to be so simple that it's incredibly unique.
Wow. Now you said you.
Now,
can
if you
bring
said
as
there was a
many knights,
Primaris
right?
Lieutenant, you know, I mean,
Now, there could be, depending on how many get printed in the future from our previous box sets that are successful, there may be in excess of edible or non-edible Primaris Lieutenants going around.
Okay, fair. G, do you want to vote, my friend?
I do, and this one seems like a no-brainer. If you've got the pay-to-win money, you take the knights and you build up that board so your opponent has nowhere to go.
Of course, G picks the knights. I'm gonna have to go with the butthole. I don't like. There's nothing much more that I like fighting the butt crack of the near dark future with beam wielding grots versus
And the brown gobbo.
and the brown gobbo. The red gobbo, he needs, I think, in lore, I've thought this for a very long time, that the red gobbo specifically needs an anti-hero villain to challenge his throne. So I'm a big fan. Moving on to the final two teams. So far, there's been a lot of great teams pitched to us, G. Do you have any front runners right now before we hear the final two teams?
Yes, and
we have Vanguards, Raveners versus Vanguard Vets, the Adeptus Wackius. We have Kill Team Space Hulk, 5 Terminators versus 12 Tau Breachers. We have Kill Team Primaris, which is the Primaris Lieutenants versus the Finecast Warp Spiders. And then we have Kill Team Maternitus, the Primaris Lieutenants versus the Chaos Space Marines, easily destroyed, by the way. And then we finally got Kill Team Dirty Jobs, another great show. Grots versus Nurglings, and finally Kill Team, was it Colosseum? I didn't write it down. Adeptus Assassins versus the Imperial Assassins versus Chaos Knights.
Front runners in these great choices. Well, there's nothing I love more than having another player tell me exactly why their team is superior to everything else. Never before have I been tired of this trope. So I still think the power fantasy, and the concept of thinking you'd have enough money to be able to do this is already a fantasy. So I think that box has the front running for me.
For me, I'm hard stuck in the realm of the Primaris Lieutenants versus the Finecast Warp Spiders in the Imperial City Ruins. So we're gonna see if we can get upset in this next round. Which one of you want to go first? Good sirs.
I think I go first, right?
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Truly incredible stuff today.
Absolutely incredible. Fantastical stuff so far.
Oh, no.
We've invested in everything so far, G.
Now we have to see, will we find something we can unanimously agree on in this final round?
We will have to see.
Oh, no.
And then the other question is, do we allow ties if a tie happens? because the stereotypical trope is, are ties allowed? We've talked about that many times on this podcast before, and other TOs see it differently.
All right. So this is our last pitch, and hopefully our most successful venture yet, because it will combine a lot of new fans together that before hated each other.
Oh,
We'll finally be able to end the age-old question of certain things like, can Gilliman beat X? Can Big-E defeat Goku? We'll find out in this box. Kill Team Crisis.
Kill Team Crisis.
Kill Team
Yeah,
Crisis.
this is the genre redefining crossover box. That's right, you heard it. Crossover.
Crossover box.
Word.
Amazing.
It's going to bring never before seen teams into the light. And it doesn't just battle each other. Oh no, it battles universes.
Okay, I'm
That's right.
intrigued.
Representing Warhammer's absolute finest warriors are the Tau Empire Crisis suits.
Tau Empire Crisis suits.
I'm going to read this one directly as is. That allows weebs the power fantasy they've always wanted. Crisis suits come in teams of 3 with 18 wounds and multiple ranged actions. With 4 APL and the ability to shoot many times with powerful, precise weapons, the Crisis suits are a threat. Now, some might say they're Gundams. Don't say those words, we'll get sued. Battling them are the all-stars of the Marvel Universe. That's right, everyone loves them. The Avengers. Iron Man, the Hulk, and Black Widow. The Avengers are fast, lethal, and bring superhero feats to Kill Team. No more fitting battlefield than an entirely new close confines board. A Comic-Con theme, complete with pop-up stands for all sorts of sci-fi genres. You may be asking, Marvel Universe, I'm not a big MCP fan. That's okay. We're going to release a lot more expansions. It's going to be a subscription base. So you pay monthly and you get a new team from a new universe. You want to fight against Goku? He's coming in mail in December. The possibilities are endless with this box. We'll finally put to bed who can beat who.
I mean, I think you've already got me. You said Goku. So how many models are in this Tau Empire Weeb Power Fantasy team?
So they are Crisis suits.
Yes.
So what we're going to give you is 10 Crisis suits, but you're only allowed to play 5 at any given time.
5, okay.
Yes. We're gonna up the ante here a little bit. And the reason we're doing that is because these 5 Crisis suits are going to have so much gear on them. You will need a book for each model.
Oh, wow.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Complete with lore, backstory, and House of Origin.
So, in your included lore crossovers, does BattleTech also exist in the lore crossover?
If they say yes to our corporate merger. So far, we have MCP and World of Tanks.
Finally. Never before have they advertised for Warhammer, in the likes like this.
So I have a hard time thinking that Black Widow would survive a wink of existence in the 41st millennium. What are her special rules specifically?
All right, so you know that cool martial arts move where she grabs the people with her legs by the head and spins around like a tornado and throws them out a window?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
That's what she does. Weight isn't comparative here because the timelines are merging. So she's as strong and as weak as anything else, meaning she can infinitely tornado Crisis suits out of buildings.
Wow. That is actually impressive, because I was just about to ask, how the fuck would she do that to a Crisis suit? It sounds like they've given her a really big power buff. So, what about the Hulk's rules specifically? How is he? What are his specific rules?
So the more drones you put on the board, the angrier he is, much like a common, GW player. Anybody who plays against Tau. So for every drone on the board, he just goes up a power scale to the point where he can one-shot things if there's enough Tau drones on the board.
Fair. Okay. All right. And
I do appreciate how this also works against Pathfinders.
yes. Yes. And then Iron Man. How about Iron Man?
So Iron Man will be in a constant laser battle between one of the Crisis suits. He's going to be your endgame event. One of them will win, but each turn and each activation, you have to roll to see where the laser goes a little push forward in either player's direction. This is actually your timeline for the battle.
Okay. All right.
I like that.
A little reminiscent of Shatterpoint here. Now I have to ask. I have to see the rules for Goku. I have to know what they are. I can't wait to.
You would like that too, but you only get those if you pay for the subscription and invest.
I have already paid for the subscription. I logged onto my computer and I bought the subscription. So tell me what the fucking rules are.
We can disclose it to you in an NDA, where if you mention the word Goku, we will sue you for everything you own.
Got it. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair. Okay. So, Tau Crisis battle suits. Once again, I hate Tau, but Gundam I like. So, all right. And then
again, we're legally not allowed to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Japanese anime power suit I like. Versus American man power suit, also fan. All right. So I'm okay. I'm down with this team. I'm down with this box so far. I like Kill Team Crisis. I'm a big fan. Moving on to Chris. What do you got to beat this team, my friend? I just hear giggling in the background.
Watch, it's just Leviathan.
So, Games Workshop is all about capitalizing on the hype of only the most modern cinematic masterpieces. And what more, just prototypical, not just a movie, but an event of the last 2 decades is Sharknado. That's right. Bringing you Kill Team Sharknado. This is the elite versus the horde, but we're all about the vicious and terrifying sharks. Kill Team Sharknado features the loyalist Space Marine Space Sharks, which are super cool and definitely don't put shark in the name of every single thing that they do. Versus, and this is approximate because we're still finalizing the figures, but roughly 200 actual sharks on the other side of the board. So now this is where things get tricky because we've actually been playing with the balance of it for some time, and some of the play testing still going on. We are finding that the sharks are sometimes eating the miniatures, which makes things difficult. And sometimes they actually also are eating the play testers. So we've actually.
So these are actual sharks.
Yes, these are actual sharks.
Do you send them out in like? Do you send them out like in like a package that people have to hatch themselves?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So the terrain in the box. So this is a rather large box. But inside the box is an inflatable kiddie pool and some not marked up GW official sand, only the highest quality sand. Now you do have to buy the water as a separate add-on, but the sharks are free, provided that you can provide them enough food to feed them.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm a really big fan of that too. Who hasn't want to put their Space Marines into like water and play like they were action figures? Now,
Space sharks are really cool.
They are really cool. I like the red wake quite a lot. What are the loyalist Space Marine sharks? What is their typical rule set, and how do they defeat these live sharks?
So the space sharks have special rules where they go faster in water, right? That's their primary advantage. And the really good thing is this box really heavily features this water terrain.
The new water world stuff.
Yes, the water world stuff is very heavily featured in this box. So the space sharks have an advantage there. And then they also are made of a special material that responds to blood. And so if there is blood in the water, their special rule kicks in, where the miniatures physically increase in size. They sort of inflate when they respond to blood. And then you use a separate data card for the blood-inflated version of the space shark.
So is this the same type of material that you get like those little kid dinosaurs and you just throw it in the water and they just expand?
Correct.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And now the 200 sharks, the eggs. Now, is the actual physical attrition of the team just how hard sharks are typically to actually raise?
Well, so the idea behind the sharks is we've actually partnered with some wildlife conservation groups. And the feedback we've been getting is that sourcing the food for these sharks has been a real challenge. So as corporate outreach and fundraising efforts and wildlife conservation efforts, Games Workshop is pioneering our first ever swim with the sharks program, which is basically our way of giving back to these sharks, these wonderful sharks, by providing them a food source that is something that they respond really well to. And we found that they seem to really, really like the taste of Kill Team players.
I thought you were going to say children.
No, that's for fans of Kill Team Eternatus.
Yeah, they're not there yet. Okay, they're still growing.
Yeah. Got it. So how does this NATO spawn, and how does it affect the gameplay?
Well, so the great thing about the Sharknado is neither player can really predict when it will happen, because it really depends on when the helicopter gets there. And that could be really at any time of day. It doesn't even matter if you're playing Kill Team or even if you have even heard of Kill Team. We have had a few incidents where the helicopter pilot hasn't identified the right house. We're still working on that. So occasionally we have airdropped a great number of sharks where they weren't previously expected. But that's what really keeps gameplay fresh and interesting.
Okay, I can see the appeal of this box, especially to those who are concerned with the ocean life and bringing them more inland, because there's so much plastic in the ocean. We can definitely care for them better.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I mean, who better to take care of the sharks than the company that puts plastic in the oceans, right?
That is true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Kill Team Sharknado. Bean.
Okay. All right, G. So, I'm not gonna lie. I think I have to give this to the Avengers, just because of the subscription service, and I'm a simp for subscription services.
I'm actually 100% agreeing with you, but I have to add one more thing. I wanted to choose the Sharks in all my heart, but I don't want to have to deal with PETA. If I have to put stake into this box set, they're going to be asking questions about those Sharks. Whether they're in the right, and they usually aren't.
Well, you just have them play the space sharks, and your problem will get solved.
I can't risk it. I gotta go with the crisis suits of the Avengers here.
All right.
For political reasons, G has chosen the side of greatness, and Goku's. I mean, anime power heroes. Okay. So I think the winner of this round goes to Orion and Baki, just because Chris made the team up and Orion pitched it. So congratulations to the two of you.
Oh, thank you. That was so fun. That was a great time.
I was not intending for you to go actual live sharks. I was like plastic sharks.
Well, you said like 200 actual sharks.
Yeah, like just actual model sharks.
I like where this went. This was pretty good.
Yeah,
I left mine pretty open-ended because I figured he'd just run with them. But Baki left me like a hyper-detailed essay on most of them.
Yeah, this was excellent fun, and I hope our listeners also enjoyed as much as we did playing this Shark Tank Sharknado game, and look forward to hearing your guys' fantastic teams on the Discord here as well. But yeah, is there anything anyone wants to shout out for the rest of while we end this episode?
Please.
Go USA! We're about to compete against all the other countries. USA players got to stick together and bring it home again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and any of you who follow along with the World Finals in Atlanta, do not hold back with any and all patriotic memes you may have available. Really, just spam the Discord with them.
Yeah, Sheldon.
Really go
really,
for it.
Nobody could ever regret, all that shit posting.
I'm looking forward to America coming through one more time and bringing home the gold.
The gold?
Maybe.
I mean,
we don't officially know.
Yeah.
Retributor armor? I don't know.
Yeah. The Retributor armor. There we go.
We're going to bring home Primaris Lieutenants.
That would be hilarious. I'm not going to lie. No, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the tournament results and stuff like that. And most of the large events now have concluded. I think there is, Chris, yours, we're trying to make it as big as possible. We have one more up in Portland with the Cascadia running another one. And then there's just LVO after this is, of course, all of these happen after the upcoming World Championship finals, the USIF, as we deemed in the last podcast, US Invitational Finals / World Championships. So that would be USIF. Yeah, that's exciting. And I'm wish every player, no matter where they come from, to have fun and enjoy Kill Team while they are there. So
it's good wishes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I got to do my spiel real quick. So, as everyone here has heard once or twice, we are affiliated with Frontline Gaming. So, if you're in the market for new box sets, secondhand models, or attending FLG events, consider using the link in the description. Any purchase you make gives us a kickback, which is always helpful, and we really appreciate it because we get to do more things like this and bring entertainment with a bunch of great people out in the Kill Team community and in the wargaming community in general. And of course, if you want to step up your hobby game, we're also affiliated with Goblin's Hut. So you can buy any of their cool little things out there. I especially recommend the Dirty Down. It's an awesome, awesome tool. And if you're doing so, use our code SQUAD10 at checkout. That SQUAD10 at checkout. Again, SQUAD10 at checkout. And lastly, if you want to support us in a more personal way, you can support us through Patreon. Patreon members get a bunch of little things in our Discord, get some bonus stuff that happens every now and then, and of course, just helps us grow what we do here.
Absolutely.
And find us on the Discord. We're on there.
I'd like to do one last shout out, and that would be if you see Kill Team Crisis out there, since we both chose that one, we get 50% of all proceeds. So make sure you buy it and help out the Squad Games podcast.
The Squad Games podcast is a production of Squad Games Entertainment. For more information on Squad Games, please visit our website at lestersworkshop.com/squad-games.